Hi everyone. Today we continue our topic on Chinese classical literature. Selected classical novels and plays. The four great classical novels, we call it 四大名著. First, Dream of Red Chamber. Also, A Dream of Red Mansions, The Story of Stone, and The Chronicle of the Stone by Cao Xueqin. Water Margin, All Men Are Brothers, and Outlaws the Marsh by Shi Nanyan. Romance of Three Kingdoms by Luo Guanzhong. Journey to West, sometimes also called Monkey King and the Monkey by Wu Cheng'en. Also, Jin Pingmei, or Plum in the Golden Ways by Lan Xiaoxiaosheng. Now we talk about some drama. Romance of the West Chamber, 西厢记 by Wang Shifu. The Injustice of 窦娥冤 by Guan Hanqing. The Peony Pavilion, 牡丹亭 by Tang Xianzhu. Now I'd like to introduce some of the famous writers and works. The first is Li Bai. Li Bai, courteous name 太白, literary name 青莲居士, poet who rivaled Du Fu for the title of China's greatest poet. Li Bai was a romantic in his view of life and in his verse. One of the most famous wine drinkers in China and long tradition of imbibers. Li Bai frequently celebrated the joy of drinking. He also wrote of friendship, solitude, the passage of time, and the joys of nature with brilliance and great freshness of imagination. The immortal poetry has been regarded as the greatest rather than one of the greatest romantic poets in Chinese literature. Some of his famous poems include Thoughts in the Silent Night, Hard is the Road to Shu, Dreaming of Sightseeing in the Tianmu Mountains. The second one is Du Fu. Du Fu, also called Du Gongbu or Du Shaonin, courtesy name Zhi Mei. Du Fu's paramount position in the history of Chinese literature rests on his superb classicism. He was highly erudite and has been remembered as a sage of the poetry. His intimate acquaintance with literary tradition of the past was equaled only by his complete ease in handling of the rules of prosody. His dense, compressed language makes use of all the connotative overtones of a phrase or of the intonational potentials of the individual word, qualities that no translation can ever reveal. He was an expert in all poetic genres current in his day, but his mastery was at his height in the 律诗 or regulated verse, which he refined to a point of glowing intensity. His famous poems include Three Officers, the Xin'an Officers, the Shihao Officers, the Officers at Tongguan Pass, and the Three Partings, the partings of newlywed, the partings of old, the partings of the homeless. Now the third great poet is Shu Shi, courtesy name Zhi Dan, literary name Dongpo Jushi, also called Shu Dongpo, one of the China's greatest poets and essayist, who also was accomplished calligrapher and a public official. He mastered the 词, 诗, 赋 forms of poetry, as well as prose, calligraphy, and painting. Emphasizing spontaneity and expressiveness, he made significant efforts to loosen poetic convention on form and content, especially in 词, and became known as the founder of the Haofang School of Writing. His optimism, so demonstrated in his private and political life, can be seen also in his poems, many of which vividly describe his own experience. His famous include To the Tune of Charm of a Maiden Singer, The Red Cliff, To the Tune of Water Melody, The Mid-Autumn Festival, and To the Tune of Riverside Town, Dream of His Deceased Wife. Now, I'd like to talk about some classic novels. The first is Dream of the Red Chamber. Dream of Red Chamber, also Red Chamber Dream, or A Dream of Red Mansion, or originally The Story of the Stone, literary record of the rock. It is a masterpiece of Chinese literature and one of the Chinese four great classical novels. It was composed in the mid-18th century during the Qing dynasty, attributed to Cao Xueqin. It is generally acknowledged as the highest peak of the classical Chinese novels. The novel is believed to be semi-autobiographical, mirroring the fortunes of Cao's own family. As author of details in the first chapter, it is intended to be memorial to the women he knew in his youth, friends, relatives, and servants. The novel is remarkable not only for its huge cast of characters, most of them female, and psychological scope, but also for its precise and detailed observation of the life and the social structure typical of 18th century Chinese aristocracy. The novel, written in vernacular Chinese and not classical Chinese, is one of the works that established the legitimacy of the vernacular idiom. Its author is well versed in classical Chinese, with tracts written in erudite semi-wenyan and in Chinese poetry. The novel's conversations are written in a vivid Beijing Mandarin dialect, which was to become the basis of modern spoken Chinese, with influences of Nanjing Mandarin, where Cao's family lived in the early. Let's talk about its theme. The novel is normally called Hong Nou Meng, literally Red Chamber Dream. Red Chamber is an idiom for the shelter chambers where the daughter of wealthy families lived. It refers to a dream that Bao Yu has set in a red chamber where the fates of many of the female characters are foreshadowed. The name of the main family, Jia, is harmony with another Chinese character, Jia, which means false, fake, fictitious, or sham. Thus, Cao Xueqin suggests that the novel's family is both a realistic reflection and a fictional or a dream version of his own family. A concept found in Chinese Buddhism is that the whole world is red dust, merely illusory and to be shunned. Thus, the novel in a way fits in perfectly with Buddhist and Taoist beliefs that to find enlightenment, one must realize that the world is but a dream from which we must awake. One should retire from the world, thus withdraw from society. Although based on interpretation, the novel essentially disagrees, as it lays stress on reality, especially on social reality. Its purport is question truth and good in life. This thought was regarded as religion by some of the people during that time. The novel provides a detailed episodic record of the two branches of the Jia clan, the Rongguo house and the Lingguo house, who reside in two large adjacent family compounds in the capital. Their ancestors were made dukes, and the novel begins, the two houses remain among the most illustrious families in the capital. The novel describes the Jia's wealth and the influence in great naturalistic detail, and the Jia's fall from the highest of their prestige, following some 30 main characters over 400 minor ones. Eventually, the Jia clan falls into disfavor, with their emperor and their mansions are raided and confiscated. The story is prefaced by supernatural Taoist and Buddhist overtones. The main character, Jia Baoyu, whose name literally means precious jade, is an adolescent heir of the family, a reincarnation of the divine attendant in waiting. The chrysanthemum pearl flower is incarnated now as Baoyu's sickly cousin, the emotional Lin Daiyu. Baoyu is predestined in the life to marry another cousin, Xue Baocai. This love triangle against the backdrop of the family's declining fortunes forms the most well-known plot line in the novel. The Romance of Three Kingdoms. Romance of Three Kingdoms, written by Luo Guanzhong in the 14th century, is a Chinese historical novel based upon events in the turbulent years near the end of the Han Dynasty and the Three Kingdoms era of China, starting in 169 and ending with the reunification of the land in 218. It is acclaimed as one of the 4 great classical novels of Chinese literature, with a grand total of 800,000 words, nearly 1,000 characters, and 120 chapters. It must be understood that one of the greatest achievements of the Romance of the Three Kingdoms is the extreme complexity of its stories and characters. The novel is studied with numerous secondary stories. Journey to the West. Journey to the West is one of the 4 great classical novels of the Chinese literature, originally published anonymously in the 1519 during the Ming Dynasty. Even though no direct evidence of its authorship survives, it has been ascribed to the scholar Wu Cheng'en since the 20th century. The novel is a fictionalized account of legends around the Buddhist monk Xuan Zhang's pilgrimage to India during the Tang Dynasty in order to obtain the Buddhist religious texts called sutras. The Bodhisattva Guanyin, on instruction from the Buddha, gave the task to the monk and his 3 protectors in the form of disciples, namely Shun Wukong, Zhu Bajian, and Sa Wujing, together with a dragon prince who acts as Xuan Zhang's horse mount. These 4 characters have agreed to help Xuan Zhang as an atonement for past sins. Part of the novel's enduring popularity comes from the fact that it works on multiple levels. It is an adventure story, a dispenser of spiritual insights, an extended allegory in which the group of pilgrims journeying toward India stands for the individual journey toward the enlightenment. That's all for this lecture. Thank you.